Well, absolutely. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you for an informative session here today. And yeah, excited to be an Impact customer. Literally, we got married in November of last year, which is okay. I can't even believe it's going to be a year anniversary. But literally in January of this year, we found out that we were pregnant. Now, I've been an Impact customer for 3 years. Prior to Impact, I had traditional healthcare. I was paying 1,100 bucks just for me. And when I got a quote from Impact, it was 246. So I'm like, you know what? 850 bucks a month in savings. Yeah, I'll take it. And my last name's Patel. I didn't ask any questions because I didn't ask any questions when I was paying 1,100 bucks a month. So I'm like, this just makes sense. But I always looked at health insurance just like car insurance, like everything else, like one of those things you got to have, but you typically don't use, knock on wood, right? So it's one of those things I'm like, I was just paying for just in case, right? And long story short, I mean, I've always seen, people, I'd be like, oh my God, I use my health, and I use my healthcare, I use my healthcare, I use my healthcare. And for the past 3 years, I never got a chance to use it. But it's a funny story I'm going to share with you. It's exactly what Melissa said. You won't believe it. I literally got back from Puerto Rico, and I come home, and my wife's like, "Can you go to CVS and stop by and get a pregnancy test?" I'm like, yeah. What are you telling me?" She goes, just go get one." I'm like, "Okay." And literally go to CVS, pick up a pregnancy test, come home, and it's positive. And I kid you not, the first words that come out of my mouth is, "Oh my God, I'm gonna have impact bills." And she looks at me, she goes, did you just say that?" I'm like, "Oh no, no, honey, I'm so excited. We're gonna be father." But obviously I had to cover it up, but you guys are probably laughing. But the first thing literally came out of my mouth, and she's Puerto Rican. She probably wanted to kill me, but at the end of the day, those were the first thing that came out. I'm like, I'm gonna have some bills. I'm like, this is gonna be absolutely amazing because again, we're referral partners with the program. But the peace of mind I had, just being transparent with you guys, the peace of mind I had was, okay, we can go see whoever you want. So the first thing I started doing is looking up the best, doctors. I want to go the natural route. Me and my wife talked about it. We want to go the natural route. So we actually got a midwife out of the gate at the end of the day, which is pretty cool. And the midwife, I can share some bills. And here's the good news about the good news about what we have. Everything's black and white and transparent. So, I mean, I got a lot of bills. I don't want to go through all the bills, but just to give you an idea, our midwife's name is Janice, obviously. You can see just a deposit for her. She wanted $2,000, as you can see on the right side. Impact was like, well, it's only one session. We'll pay you by session. They communicate with her billing department, and $2,000 got repriced down to $237. So I only had to pay $237 versus a 2 grand deposit just for her to be your midwife, and she agreed upon that, which is pretty cool. Right. And then obviously when she was pregnant, there was weekly visits to doctors and ultrasounds, and we wanted to do preventative care like chiropractic care and lab work, and I mean, I didn't realize how much lab work goes into this. I feel like she was giving blood every single week, which was like insanity to me. But if you take a look, we have a lab work bill with Amerilab here. She went in. They wanted to charge us $1,400. Impact saved us $701. The bill came out to literally, was it 701, and Impact paid $631, and I only owed 70 bucks because at this point we already met our PRA, which is pretty cool. So the 90/10 started kind of kicking in. And then my wife, during the pregnancy, she got diagnosed with gestational diabetes. So in the state of New Jersey, even though you have a midwife, you actually have to go get an OBGYN too now, because it's considered quote unquote high risk, right? So I remember going to Vista Women Health, which is, a practice, which is, what they do. Our first visit, they wanted to charge us 750 bucks. Impact repriced it by $523 dollars. We only pay, 226 was there. 158 paid was paid by Impact members, and we only had to pay $67. And we've gotten, if we had to do weekly ultrasound at the end of the day. So if I go to like, Roche ultrasound right here, which is we started doing weekly ultrasound on every Wednesday, practically like clockwork. We had to make sure the baby was good and everything was good. And literally, if you take a look, and they wanted to charge us $1,500 for this ultrasound. Impact repriced it by 1,200 bucks. We owed almost close to $300. I only had to pay $29. And that's kind of started happening on a weekly basis, as you can see. And it's crazy. Here's the chiropractic care. Again, chiropractors. We want to do preventative because Nasa had my wife had herniations due to a prior accident, if that makes sense. We want to make sure because she were going again the natural route and everything like that. Chiropractic care, $668. They sent the bills into Impact. We only owed $5.32, and Impact paid them $53 for us. So you can see over and over again on countless bills from and again another LabCorp bill, another chiropractic bill. I mean, these are just over and over again. And then obviously when we added my son, I didn't know this. Um, when I'm in the hospital, the first thing they're telling me after the kid's born, do you have a physician? I'm like, a primary care doctor. I'm like, no. Have you looked into one? I'm like, I didn't think I need one right away. And they're like, well, we can't let you leave until you find one. And I'm like, okay. And I'll just kind of tell you where I wanted to be. I didn't want to, give my kids any kind of vaccination or things like that. That's kind of what I believed in, right? So what I wanted to do was find a physician that was okay with it, right? And that was really, really hard. But in my mind, I already knew, like, I'm like, you know what, Impact's going to cover them no matter what. So I'll just find somebody. So I remember reaching out to a company called IV Pediatrics. Actually, before I get into IV Pediatrics, my kid, because my wife had gestational diabetes, obviously his sugar levels weren't like leveling out when he was born, if that makes sense. So he was in NICU for 24 hours. So these are some NICU bills that, a $2,500 bill was a NICU bill, as you can see, got repriced by 2,100 bucks. I only had to pay $46 was another NICU bill. $1,000 got, repriced by $15. So these were some things that we were kind of going through, which again, I wasn't worried about bills because I knew had a peace of mind. Worst case scenario, worst case scenario, I'm gonna pay 7,500 bucks. After that, I knew Impact members and everybody was gonna be able to take care of the rest, which is really a peace of mind in my head. But then again, they told me before I had to leave, like, hey, you're gonna discharge the kid. My son was great, and they're like, well, you're gonna get discharged in 48 hours. Did you find a physician? I'm like, well, we just got my son out of the NICU. Let me go make some phone calls. I made a bunch of phone calls, and there was a lot of phone calls that I made. I probably made about, I don't know, maybe 12, 15 phone calls to different facilities. And I had the bright idea. I'm like, why don't I just call my midwife? She probably knows a good a good pediatric doctor that's, vaccine free, and they accept us. And I called her. She gave me a referral, which is IV Pediatrics. And here's the crazy part. I call them. They said, what kind of insurance do you have? And I said, well, I have a health share. Here's my number. Here's my card. It was a knee-jerk reaction. The first thing they said was, oh, we don't accept any health shares. I'm like, time out. Hold on a second. Let me do one thing. I'm coming for a routine checkup for my child. I'm coming in probably in the next couple of days. So one of the cool things about Impact, which I remembered, is they prepay for a wellness visit, right? So the first thing I do is I go online, I go to Impact, I log into my portal, I fill out the form. I said, our health share is different. My health share will prepay before I even walk in. She's like, I've never heard that before in my life. I said, well, let me ask you a question. If they do that, would you mind courtesy billing Impact for me? And she goes, if they prepay, because they've tried other health shares prior, then they had bad experience with them and they were bad brothers and sisters out there, if that makes sense. And they're like, they told me some horror stories. I said, if they prepay, would you be open to just potentially billing? And here's what I said. I'll put my card on file. That way, here's my credit card, just in case if you don't get nothing. That's how confident I am. I'm like, if you don't get it, just charge whatever you want to charge to my card. So when I said that, the biller was pretty cool about it, because again, I had 100% confidence in Impact. And here's the crazy part. I literally submitted a prepay, a wellness checkup. You can see right here, they prepaid it. I submitted on 15th. Everything was done on 21st. They already prepaid it. And now, if you take a look, there's a lot of bills underneath processing for him. They're all from IV Pediatrics right here. So there's a $300 bill. Now they're finally submitting it to Impact, and now you're seeing it getting repriced, by $167. Here's the crazy part. They wanted me to pay $100. Now they're actually getting $167. So they're actually winning, if that makes sense. Their cash price was $100, which they wanted me to pay, but now they're making $167. So they're actually winning on this. And then if you take a look, there was another bill for $500, which is a sick visit. Again, now they're seeing it that it's working, and now they're asking questions on how is this even possible, what's even going on, which is pretty cool. Now, another great story about this is because the doctors got paid quickly, because everything's kind of happening, they're all asking questions. Hey, where did you get this? And it's one of those things that when providers start asking questions, that the fact that they're getting paid in less than 12 to 18 days, that's a huge deal for providers. And they're not credentialized or not none of that jazz. So Impact has been a phenomenal blessing for me, my family, for this, especially in a time of need. I'd have had zero stress. My wife picked whoever she wanted to go to. She picked the best of the best. And in the New Jersey, we can literally had no issues whatsoever, which was cool. And literally, we wanted to do a birthing center birth. And the crazy thing was, morning of she had a little bit of fluids there, and we're like, you know what, let's just go get it checked out. We got an ultrasound, and like, oh, maybe not, whatever. And then we ended up at the hospital because of whatever. Thank God we did, because it did break. There was a leak, and because we went to the hospital, people start panicking, if that makes sense. Like, oh my God, is it going to be covered? And I'm like, well, all right, we're here, no problem. Impact will take care of it. I gave my card. They'd say, well, you know what, we're good. And you know what? It took care of the whole process from the beginning to the middle to the end. Even now, I mean, it's just been a complete blessing for what it's been able to do. So the doctor became a customer, which is pretty cool, of Impact. He went from $3,200 a month down to 605. He had a family of seven. It literally was the funniest thing ever. And he switched all his employees over, which is the OBGYN doctor, which is pretty cool. And the chiropractic doctor that my wife uses became a customer too. He was paying $900 a month. And now with us, he's paying 310. So it's pretty crazy how my son's birth has helped me get a bunch of customers, which is crazy. So it's been exciting. Now my wife wants to get pregnant again, so I can get some other doctors and stuff like that. So I get some more customers. But with that being said, Melissa, thank you for having me on the call here today, and I'll throw the call back to you.